Put the hands there. Hey, hey, hey,
Ah!
hey. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Facebook Live and YouTube Live. We're glad to see you this morning. We're here for another great day. Today is Friday. And
Friday.
Friday's the day where we actually hear from you. What questions do you have? What would you like to talk about? It's really an opportunity where it's open mic. You can post your question, post a comment, something that's on your heart and your mind concerning your marriage, concerning your family, that you want to discuss. We are here for you. So wherever you're dialing in from, just post your comment, post your question, and let's get into a great conversation. What are you hearing, Danielle? There's so many things going on, so many topics, so many questions. What are some of the biggest areas that people really have concerns about from what you're hearing? For me, it's communication, it's trust, it's how do you manage your finances, but you may be hearing some different things from different people.
I think communication is always going to stay at the top. It's always going to be the
Morning,
biggest
Ivy.
issue. I think it's just how people are needing to be communicated with. Because there's so many different ways that we can communicate. Body language is a big one. If I have rules of engagement and I know how to talk to you, but I still haven't mastered my body language, I can still experience a lot of offense just by looking at that. So, there's just so many different forms: sexual communication, intimacy, touching. It's always going to somehow land in the backyard of communication as a major issue.
It seems like communication is the number one issue that impacts every single area of your life. Good morning, Dennis, calling from California. Very good. Good to see you. April, good morning.
So we're here to take your questions. So if you have a question, thank you guys for joining us this morning. If you have a question, jump in and get your question answered early, because you're an early attender.
It's so interesting. If you've ever gone to a pool party, everybody is in their bathing suits, standing around the pool, waiting for the first person to jump in. Then when the first person jumps in, then everybody jumps in.
Same thing with the dance floor. If you go to a party, nobody's dancing, but when the first couple gets on that dance floor and they know how to do the Hollywood shuffle, next thing you know, everybody's on the dance floor. So you be the one to start the party by jumping in here and asking your question.
All right. Well, good morning, Kira.
Good morning, Kira.
Good morning, Granville from Australia. Well, listen, guys, we can cut this short. If you don't have a question, we don't have to stay on here. It's all good. This is for you. So I guess everybody's doing well. Everybody's having a wonderful time, and everybody's doing great in their relationships.
Well, while we wait for them to wrestle up a question, I can share we had a lovely time yesterday. We talked about parenting, right? And so what we did with our kids is we took them out on the lake. And, with the social distancing issue out here, it's important for us to still find ways to connect. And we were able to be socially distant and have an amazing time with our family. And not one thing went wrong. Not one kid had an attitude. Not one kid was mad at the other one for taking up their space. So they were so connected. They were so together. And it was amazing.
It was. All right. We got a question. Talk to overcoming multiple affairs. I think that's a good topic. Now, as you know, we are infidelity recovery specialists. Couples Academy specializes in affair recovery and divorce prevention. And, we could spend weeks and weeks and weeks on how to overcoming an affair. What we do know, generally speaking, whether it's a one-night stand, whether it's a long-term, deep emotional relationship, whether it's multiple sexual affairs because of a sexual addiction, whatever the affair may be, generally speaking, the way you overcome one is the way you overcome them all. Now, there are some nuances and some particulars to each person's situation, but what we have found is that, everybody's struggling with the same thing, and everybody wants their situation to be what it's not. For instance, man, you had a deep emotional affair. Wow, well, if you just had sex, then maybe I wouldn't take it so hard. But the fact that you gave them your heart makes it that much worse. And then on the flip side, we'll have people say, man, you gave that person your body. I can't even think about the possibility of us being together. If it was just an emotional affair, maybe I wouldn't take it so hard. But the fact that you gave him your body, and then we hear the same thing. Well, golly, I could understand it if it was 10 individual short-term affairs, but the fact that it was so long, it was like a 2-year relation. So everybody wants what they don't have. And so I don't think it matters if it's multiple affairs, if it's one affair. The recovery process is exactly the same. And in that affair recovery process, it is something that you cannot do in your own. This whole idea of we're going to fix it on our own, we're going to work it out on our own, you are doing yourself a major disservice. You can have the principles of what to do, but not have the wisdom and the proper application to make it make sense. This is a situation where you cannot be in the driver's seat, steering and guiding this journey. You need someone outside of yourself who will help you and will engage in a process that will lead to your recovery. So I highly recommend, you could read all the books you want. You could watch all of our videos. We've had people that have done 3-day intensives with us that have said, listen, we spent months watching your videos, and we went on our own journey, rented a cabin, went away for the weekend and just did things and realized that we were missing steps. Things were out of order. We couldn't figure things out. And we had to come to you to go through the process all over again. And thank God, because we got in this weekend what we would have never been able to get on our own. So there is a specific process of the recovery journey that you must take. And I would highly recommend, if this is you, call us. You see that number scrolling at the bottom? You see that website? Set up a free discovery call. Get in today so we can figure out how to help your situation.
Very good. In agreement. Kiara says, question, so much has happened in the relationship. How do you move past self to open up again? I find that I just can't. Wow, that's a powerful statement that you made, saying that you just can't, because the truth is, take that highlight off.
Oh, sorry about that.
The truth is that healing is literally a choice. It is a choice that you have to make. And that's the first principal thing, is to make the decision to heal. Now, the how comes afterwards in a whole bunch of steps and processes. But until you make the decision and the commitment to healing, you're going to be in a place of indecision. That's number one. Number two, once you get to that place where, okay, I've made the decision that I am going to heal and I'm going to get on a path to recovery. Now it's about taking an account of the issues, because it's so different for so many people, what you're dealing with. You know, for some, it's a major issue, like an affair that takes place and you can no longer have sex with your spouse again. Let's just take something like that. That's a major issue, right? But for somebody else, that isn't even on the table of an issue. Like, they have no problem going back and having sex with their spouse. It's more emotional stuff. So you have to first take an account of what are the issues that are keeping you from moving on and opening up and forgiving. Are there still trust issues? Are there still things that you don't know? You haven't had full disclosure about the affair and what happened. What is going on? And once you have that knowledge, then you could take some steps forward to start to resolve those issues.
Hope that makes sense. Great point. We have another one. Thoughts, please. How do you know giving someone another chance after infidelity is the right path? Sometimes I feel like, sometimes I don't know if it's source talk or just fear. Okay. Well, listen, I think everybody deserves another chance. What we have discovered is that, typically speaking, infidelity is not what causes people to divorce. It's how people show up or refuse to show up after the discovery of the affair that determines whether that marriage will work out or not. See, an affair will expose something going on in the person, something going on in the relationship, or a combination of the two. And so that's why we take you through a process that's 3-pronged. Number one, you have the affair recovery. Number two, you have the marital recovery. And that is really putting the proper building blocks in place to have a long-lasting, sustainable, mutually beneficial, closed relationship. And number three, and dare I say, maybe the most important, your individual recovery process. It goes into what Danielle just said based upon the previous question. You all have your own individual journey. So think about this. You always have a betrayed spouse and you have an unfaithful spouse. Both of you are hurting in two completely different ways. So your healing process is different. Think about a 3-lane highway. You're in one lane, your spouse is in another lane, And then there's the middle lane that you two share together. So you have your joint journey as a couple, and then your individual journey. And by working with us individually about your particular issues, you're able to find your personal healing, which ultimately impacts your relationship. So no, you do not have to just end it in how many times have you been unfaithful to your God? How many times have you been unfaithful to family, friends, and they gave you another opportunity and gave you another chance? And what we've realized that it's not a devastating blow that destroys completely. It is a blow that sets you back, but so many people have overcome. So many people are together today and don't have the residue that the affair initially created, because they went through a process of healing and personal transformation. And if it could work for them, it could work for you. If we didn't believe in this, if we didn't help couples get results in this, we wouldn't be in this line of work. So there's a handful of people who are gifted to guide people through that process, and God has granted us with a grace and a skill set to do that very thing. So listen, set up a discovery call and let's talk further.
All right, this one looks like it's for me, Danielle. For Danielle, man responsible for Danielle, how did you handle having to leave home early? And Hassan, did you handle her going through her transition, not having, I guess, some type of love understanding? You know what? You got to ask that question
I don't
again,
understand that question.
Dennis, I need you to reword that.
I think that may be, yesterday you mentioned when we were talking about parenting, how you left early,
as a child.
I guess I don't know what that's in reference to as it relates to an affair, but this is not an affair conversation.
This is an anything conversation.
This is an anything conversation.
Yeah, reword the question so I can give you a good answer. I'm not sure what you're asking there.
Okay, here we go. 1 year on from my infidelity. It was a once-off online affair over 4 months, struggling a lot still. Communication is still the main issue. Before the affair as well as now. Will it ever get better? Well, that's a great question. Will it? What are you going to do to make it get better? See, we can come on here every single day and give you great information. We can write books. We can do seminars. We can do counseling sessions, but none of it will work if you don't work. It's just as simple as that. What makes one person overcome their issues and another person remain stuck? What causes one couple to excel and another couple fall behind? If the information is the same, if the process is the same, well, at the end of the day, it becomes the human factor. See, a lot of times people think just coming to this live stream is the work. Going to a session is the work. Going to a retreat is the work. No, that is where you go to find out what work you need to do. And then you got to implement and execute. So yes, it is very possible for you to experience a breakthrough in your personal life as well as in your marriage. But you've got to be committed to the process, period, point blank. And when you do that, you will get the results.
Amen.
Okay. I think we have another question down here. Yes, God did, Hasani, bless y'all with a gift. We truly are grateful for you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. What are the other questions that are coming in? I think this is another one. This question is for both of you. Hassan, how do you handle your wife transitioning into marriage? Did she ever lash out at anything? At any given time, you don't understand what was going on?
Yes.
Of course. Of course.
Yes. I guess you're talking about having moved out early and sort of having my own independence, and then now getting married and having to share my independence with somebody else. Of course, there's that whole issue of trying to become one and understanding different personality styles and how he grew up versus how I grew up and my likes and his likes. So of course, there were many, many moments where I had lashed out, and there were many, many moments where he lashed out. I really don't think it had much to do with me moving out early as much as it just had to do with two people coming together trying to become one.
Yeah, I think we have different family traditions, different family cultures, different ways of thinking, different methodologies, different ways of functioning in the home. And whenever two people come together, no matter who it is, they're going to have to deal with these realities. Wait a minute, I don't do it like that, but I do it like this. So we had differences in terms of how we wanted to decor the household. For instance, I'm a person, I grew up watching TV till I fell asleep. I could fall asleep with the TV on. Danielle didn't grow up that way. That was an adjustment that we had to have. You know what I mean? In terms of how it had to be silent. It had to be pitch black in the bedroom in order for her to fall asleep because she's a light sleeper. So those are the normal everyday challenges that any two people will have when they get married. And it's working through those issues, is realizing what battles are worth fighting and which ones are just not. And I think so many people are so stuck and it's got to be my way and this is who I am. And they're not willing to pivot and change. And that's what leads to a whole lot of problems. So no matter what you're going through, if you have the right attitude about it, you can get through it and you can overcome it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think this is another one. It seems like a lot of women that have an affair are hesitant about coming forward because of how they may be perceived. Danielle, what are your thoughts and advice to a woman that has not come forward?
First of all, my advice is to come forward and have a discovery call with us because we work very well with women who have experienced infidelity. It is a special group because what we've recently learned is that we can't put you all in the same group with other women who have been hurt. It doesn't work well when it comes to support. In particular, having a community of people that can support you, that know what you've been through and can support you in that manner. We handle that by having separate groups for that, where you can have your own recovery and talk about some of your own issues. Because what happens is women are afraid to talk about what they're really going through, even though they were the offending partner. It's difficult to say, well, you know what, I'm still having memories of this person that I was with, and I miss the experience and all of these things that are actually really going on and a part of your need for recovery don't get talked about in the main group because it's just not well received. So I would say if you know someone or if that's you, to come forward and have a conversation and we could talk about how we could support you in that.
Excellent. Excellent. How can you support your wife at times she is struggling with self-worth? Well, I think it's important to realize that you are partners together in this thing called life. And when one person's down, it's your job to do whatever you can to help them get back up. I would really unpack the root of the self-worth. Did she lose her worth or her value or her esteem based upon something that happened? It's okay, babe. Based upon something that happened in the marriage? Did she bring it into the relationship and now you're dealing with residue from the past? I think that means a lot. And so a lot of times we've seen, since we're talking about affairs and violations in a marriage, when an affair happens, it can crush someone's self-worth and self-esteem. And so they begin to question themselves, how they look, who they are, all types of things. So there is a role that you can play, but there's also the role that the person who's lost their self-worth has to play as well. You can't do their part and they can't do your part. What you need to do is find out what the source of the low self-esteem or self-worth is and speak into that. Danielle talks about the importance of speaking to the seed inside of a person and not to the weeds that surround a person, meaning you want to speak into their life about all of their good qualities and everything that makes them great, and not continue to harp on the things that are not favorable, not pleasant. This is your area.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think it's super simple, and we could just put it in layman terms that if you cheated on your wife or your spouse in general, and they're now experiencing self-worth, it's pretty clear why that is, especially if they were somebody that was pretty confident before. I talk to women all the time and they say some of the things that trigger me and cause me to have these emotional outbursts I never even thought about before. Like if you go to the grocery store and you said you'd be back in 15 minutes, but instead you're back in 25 minutes. Prior to the affair, you wouldn't think about it. You would just assume that they're on their way. They took a left turn, who knows? But now they're sensitive to everything. So if you are experiencing a partner that has low self-worth right now, it is your job to speak into that person, pour into that person, tell them what they are, build them up as much as they can. Now, that's not going to resolve the issue immediately, but it is something that you need to do and to continue to do while you are on your journey to recovery. I think what happens is we get fatigued if we're the offender, and we're sick and tired of trying to tell you over and over again, you don't believe me, obviously, because every time I tell you, you don't believe me. You have to keep filling up the cup. Do not quit while you're on the road to recovery and working out those other things. And together, those things together really do help that person to start to see that, okay, it wasn't me. And that's when recovery takes place. This is something that you were going through, and that takes time, but it does happen.
Very good point. Very good point. Another question from Carrie. I found my husband having an emotional affair back in April via text. He tells me I had no intentions of being with her. I love you and want you. How is it when he invested hours a day elsewhere? Yep, an emotional affair can do that. You know, there is a phenomenal book that is entitled Not Just Friends. And it talks about, and there's many books out there, but it talks about how there's been an evolution, if you will, of infidelity, how it's gone from being very transactional to very relational. And oftentimes affairs are started out of what we would consider innocent, platonic relationships, but they have had no boundaries, no parameters, no rules of engagement. And a lot of couples, unfortunately, when they get married, there are assumptions that are made about what's right and what's wrong, but it's never been discussed. And so a lot of times a person can say, oh, it's no big deal. We just text. Oh, it's no big deal. We just communicate from time to time. Oh, it's no big deal. We just go out for lunch. And all of these non-boundary having individuals and marriages can create an environment where all of a sudden you go down the slippery slope and now you're connecting in ways that you don't with your spouse. And then all of a sudden emotional ties can be developed. And now you start looking forward to conversations. And now all of a sudden it goes from an emotional connection to a sexual interest. And now you're in a full-blown affair. And even if it's not sexual, listen, sometimes an emotional affair can be just as bad or even more damaging than a sexual affair. And so it's important that as a couple, you create rules of engagement for what is appropriate when dealing with members of the opposite sex so that you have a healthy foundation. So it's not lost. It's not over. You can restore your relationship. And this is why we do what it is that we do. Mm-hmm. Now, I love the fact that all these questions are coming in. You guys just need to ask these questions a little bit earlier. So every Friday, that is the day where we address these things. And so we want you to come ready to go. Listen, if you have other questions, feel free. You see that you could set up a free discovery call. All you need to do is go to couplesacademy.org. We'll do a 15-minute discovery call with you, kind of walk you through some particulars of your question and even talk about possible options of how we can work with you to help you overcome what it is you're going through. We love you guys. We thank you for tuning in every single morning. You really listen, as beneficial as it may be for you, we really get something out of you connecting with us. So absolutely. Have a great weekend. We will see you on Monday morning for another great lesson. Take care. Bye-bye.